reached the quarterfinal stage of the Champions League, the final 8, and this is episode 36 of Pinnacle FC. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you. We'll break down each and every one of the quarterfinal matchups. Jake might actually dig into the Europa League a little bit as well, because we all know a competition where Spurs and Manchester United are still playing is absolutely worth still talking about. What do you make of this final 8, Jake? Are you excited about the fixtures this week and I guess the return legs next week as well?
Yeah, I think we've got a very good final 8. I think Dortmund, in my mind, are probably the weakest team left in the competition. But even they're, shown that they've got pedigree finalists last year. So yeah, I mean, it should be really good. I mean, it is bizarre though, having gone through all the league phase and all the drama that was there, that we've still got 3 teams that had to go through that knockout round, which in PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and they're 3 of the 4 favourites to win the whole competition, which kind of shows you that what, for all intents and purposes, the league phase was there to make more jeopardy. It still just means that the best teams have a little bit of extra to fall back on, just in case they don't have a very good season. Obviously, we saw Manchester City finish there; they got knocked out by Madrid. But yeah, it's just an extra, just in case you have a bad 8 or 4 out of 8 games, you've still got that security blanket of being able to get through a knockout round and make it to these quarters. But yeah, I don't think any of us can look at this lineup and think that there's some imposters here.
PSG were that story, right? A team that kind of struggled through the league stage or the league phase. And by the unluck of the draw, Liverpool were drawn PSG and got knocked out against a very good side. Barcelona could have drawn PSG, and they ended up with Brest. So it's just a completely different scenario the way it played. Actually, Benfica, they beat Brest in the previous round, and played Benfica. So the draw really had a huge role to play here, and Liverpool will feel a little bit hard done by. We won't shed any tears on this podcast, especially from where I sit. All the markets that we'll be using today will be courtesy of Pinnacle. BetSmart, Bet Pinnacle, the futures market. Let's start there. Barcelona favorites to win. Perhaps it's because they're playing the perceived weakest team remaining, even though they're last year's finalist in Borussia Dortmund. You can get Barcelona onside at plus 315, PSG second favorite at plus 330, Real Madrid plus 390, and it goes down from there. Aston Villa way out at plus 3,300, Borussia Dortmund plus 4,400 to go on and win the Champions League. Is there anything worth playing or looking at there in those markets, or do you prefer the particular matchups here in the quarters?
No, I still think there's small amount of value to be had in backing Inter. I think they're one of the teams that have shown consistently they're the best teams in Europe, and yet we're getting them as the almost third outsiders, if you like, in
plus 975. Yep.
Which I think is does them a little bit of a disservice. They obviously have shortened after getting through the last round, but still nowhere near enough. And I think, especially given that the side of the draw that they're on means they'll face Barcelona or Dortmund in the semi-finals, I think that's still is too big of a number at plus 975. I know they've got to get past Bayern, but we'll talk about Bayern and their injury issues and things like that when we get to that game. But yeah, on the flip side of the draw, you've got it stacked with PSG, Real Madrid, Arsenal, and Villa, and I think any of those 4 are capable of getting to the final. So I would not want to back anybody in that side of the draw. Villa are going to be an awkward team for anybody. I think PSG probably will qualify, but it won't be straightforward. Arsenal, again, just so solid defensively, and they've got a couple of injury issues themselves, but they're going to be hard to beat. And Real Madrid just do what Real Madrid do, so it's very difficult to kind of, even for as good as PSG have been and for as good as they are this season, any of those 4 teams, for my money, can make the final. So at this moment in time, I'm still happy with Inter and in the outrights. But yeah, it potentially looks more wide open than years gone by, in the sense of the way in which the draw has kind of turned out. Because Real Madrid get through, they might get PSG, and then that's a blockbuster of a tie. So yeah, it's fascinating, and I know we were on Barcelona fairly early. They look good. I just have nagging doubts about their defensive capabilities if they come up against a team that, like Inter, who will sit deep and then hit on the counter attack. That's just
Maybe.
how are they going to deal with that? But
Maybe.
anyway, yeah.
We'll get into Inter because it's been a strange old season for Inter, at least from where I sit watching them play, following the data as well. I mean, it just seems like it's written in the stars. We're going to get an El Clasico Champions League final.
Could well be.
It's very difficult for me to look past Barcelona for a lot of obvious reasons, and Real Madrid just get the job done. And the state of Arsenal's back four right now, it's hard for me to get on side with them. I just at plus 390, maybe get a little bit more juice backing Real Madrid. Them in this competition. Borussia Dortmund, by the way, making last year's final, that was improbable. This time around, I just think it's unthinkable. It's unfathomable. So we'll just leave it at that. Let's get into the particular ties, and let's start off with that Bayern-Inter tie. And I mean, this fixture going into it, it's been absolutely affected by injuries and player availability. This is a rematch nearly 15 years ago in the 09-10 final. Inter won their third and final, their last Champions League against Bayern Munich. So it's a rematch here. And like Jake already said, the winner of this Bayern Munich, Inter Milan tie, will go on to face the winner of Barca and Dortmund in the semifinal. Both of them advanced to the quarterfinal, the round of 16. It was a bit of a walk in the park. Bayern Munich 5-0 in aggregate over Leverkusen. It's the 23rd time, by the way, they've been in a quarterfinal, and they're the only side to reach the final 8 in every year since the 1920 year, which they went on to win the Champions League. They haven't lost in their last 4 overall in all competitions. They haven't kept a clean sheet in 3, however. They've gone over 2.5 in 6 of 8. Both teams to score has played in 4 of 5. They're actually unbeaten in their last 22 Champions League games at home. And they scored 28 Champions League goals in the campaign this season. And that's the second most behind Barcelona in that category. Their last 2 at home, however, in domestic play, they gave up 2 to St. Pauli and 3 to Bochum somehow. They have the best expected goal differential in the Champions League with a plus 17.6 and plus 1.466 expected goal differential per 90 minutes. Harry Kane has led the way with 10 goals, 12 1-1 at home in the Bundesliga this season with 46 scored, 14 conceded, and the best expected goals at a whopping 48.34. And their expected goals against has been great at home, just 9.51 as well. Of note, Davies, Upamecano out, Kingsley Coman, Manuel Neuer, question marks, and Jamal Musiala. I mean, it's a big one. He was injured on the weekend. He's done for the season as well. As for Inter, they dispatched of Feyenoord with relative ease as well. They haven't lost in 10 in all competitions, but don't have a clean sheet either in their last 3. Both teams to score have played in 5 of 6. They do have 12 clean sheets away from home on the season, but they conceded twice in 10 Champions League games. That's it. Just 2 goals conceded in this competition. I didn't like it over the weekend because I was on Inter to pick up a clean sheet. They were up 2-0 against Parma. They ended up drawing Parma 2-0 and gave up an XG in that game of 1.66 in the process. That comes on the heels of giving up a goal to Udinese and having a 1.34 expected goals against there. So it's been shaky of late. By the way, Bastoni came off with a little bit of a knee issue at halftime against Parma. We'll be keeping our eye on that. It seems like it was a little bit more precautionary than anything else. Although they have only conceded twice in the Champions League, Inter do have a 9.2 expected goals against in this competition. Only Arsenal are better, but still it's a dramatic shift from just the 2 goals that they've conceded. Inter, though, have been shaky as of late. They've conceded 8 away goals since the beginning of February, and only Empoli and Monza have conceded more away goals over that span. And away from home in Serie A, in their last 6, 1-3-2. It's been very weird. They've only conceded 13 away all season, so the turn in form is something to at least take note of. Taremi, Zielinski, Dumfries are out. The latter 2 particularly important because Aslani is suspended as well, meaning that maybe Frattesi is going to join a midfield of Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan. I don't know about that. Head-to-head between these 2 sides, they played the under 2.5 in 8 of their last 10. In 2022, Bayern Munich won in the group stage of this competition, both home and away, 2-0. Bayern Munich are the favorites to advance from this tie, Jake. They're favorites in the first leg as well, but the injuries are going to play a significant role. How are you looking at, how do you handicap this tie? Because from where I'm sitting, this can really go either way.
Yeah, big time. I do lean towards Inter just because I believe in that. You get to this stage of the Champions League, defensive solidity is very, very important. It keeps you in games, it keeps you in ties, and we know in knockout football, you know, you can be the second best team on the pitch, and you take one chance, the opponent doesn't take theirs, and that's game over. So teams like Inter are very, very dangerous. You mentioned about Inter conceding 2 goals from a pretty high expected goal total, but doing a little bit of digging, I'm not too worried about that. In the sense that on XG per shot basis, they're conceding the lowest or the best opportunities, if you like. So every shot that they've faced so far in the Champions League on average have had an XG of 0.07, which is comfortably the best in the competition. And it just shows you that when they do give up a shot, it is very low probability. And just for context, so that's every chance that they concede on average has around a 7% chance of being scored. Bayern Munich, every chance that they concede has an average of around 13% chance of being scored, so nearly twice as likely to go in every time an opponent has a shot against Bayern compared to Inter. So that just shows you how well they're limiting their opponents in terms of whether it be narrowing angles, forcing players wider for the shots, getting bodies in the way of certain shots. It's doing a job in terms of that defensive process and does kind of explain why they've only conceded twice. And I'm going to lean on that. I know you've said they've had a few issues recently defensively, but I think under 2.5 goals has got to be the play here. I was very surprised to see the price available at -108. I thought it would be a little bit shorter, and I thought, to be honest, the line would be 2.25 given Inter involved. I know Bayern Munich are capable of covering this line by themselves, but I just can't see them doing that against an Inter team that could turn up in Germany. Not park the bus, but pretty much park the bus and play on the counter-attack. We've seen them do it already against Manchester City in the league phase, and that was before City lost Rodri to an injury. They held them to a goalless draw. We saw them do that in Leverkusen, conceded a late goal in that one to only lose 1-0. Obviously, against in a home game against Arsenal as well, which finished 1-0. And like you said, unders has clicked in 7 of 10 Champions League games so far. And the only 3 games they went over were a 3-0 win over Monaco at home, where Monaco were reduced to 10 men after 12 minutes. It was Red Star, 4-0 win, and a 2-1 win over Feyenoord in the last second leg, where Feyenoord kind of had to go for it and left themselves too exposed. So every other game's been low scoring. Every other game's been 1-0, 0-0. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that this first leg, especially with as you said, the injuries. Not only Musiala being huge for Bayern's attack, but also Davies down the left providing that extra width. And at the same time, I think the fact that Upamecano's not playing means that we're probably going to have Eric Dyer at centre back with Kim, which means that I think Bayern might be a little bit wary of the transition as well, and probably won't play as front foot attack minded as they usually would, just somewhat scared, if you like, of getting caught on the counter attack. So I think everything for me points towards a low goal total, and I'm more than happy to back it at -108.
That's what I think Inter will want. It's worth mentioning that the number for Bayern Munich to win this match outright, just the first leg outright, is shifting as we speak. I mean, it was at +105, 106 on Sunday night. Now we're sitting here, it's shifted out to -104. So we're recording this podcast on Monday afternoon in the UK, Monday morning where I am in Canada. So there may be some potentially team news that has come out that may be shaping that. What we do know is Denzel Dumfries isn't playing, so that means Darmian's going to come in. It's another reason why to shade to the under. Guerrero's in for Davies, obviously at left back. Not the player Davies is, still a good attacking player. It's the addition of Polina coming into the team that's interesting for me. He's playing much more now, much more defensive minded, midfielder, combative, who will suit kind of the unders for me, especially if you're bringing in a Muller to play, replacing um, replacing Musiala. Like it makes Olise's role more prominent. There's all sorts of variables of unknowns here about how this is actually all going to play out because it's simply nowhere near best on best. So yeah, I lean to the under. My play when I was at plus 104, plus 105, I was leaning Bayern Munich to play in the first leg. I kind of feel like they could edge out a victory at home. They don't lose at home in the Champions League. But I think if you're going to make an overall play, plus 115 for Inter to advance is probably the smart play. The second leg being away, we'll see what this Bayern Munich side looks like, just in terms of all the replacements coming in and how deep those injuries go. So my favorite play when it comes to this tie would be Inter to advance, but I wouldn't be against making a pro Bayern Munich play in the first leg as well. But follow the number, watch the team news here as we head to kickoff. Those would be my two significant plays, but I definitely don't disagree with you, Jake, about shading the under or leaning to the under here in the first leg as well. Anything else, or shall we move on to Arsenal and Real Madrid? The first time these sides have ever met at the Emirates. It's going to be a big night in North London, as it always is when the Real Madrid Galacticos roll into town. Arsenal put 9 past PSV in the previous stage of this competition. They scored 7 at PSV in the first leg, and it's worth mentioning that they've only scored 7 goals in the 5 games since. A 1-1 draw at Everton on the weekend. Clearly, Mikel Arteta's selection had everything to do with the Real Madrid fixtures. Partey, Odegaard, Timber, Martinelli all started on the bench. No losses in 7 for the Gunners. Both teams to score have played in 5 of 6. They're unbeaten in 10 in the Champions League at home with 8 clean sheets in the process. An 8.7 expected goals against is the best in the Champions League with only 6 goals conceded in 10 matches played. Arsenal also 10-4-1 in the Premier League at home, and 11.71 expected goals against is also the best. However, Gabriel is a significant loss. Kivior played well on the weekend, but this is a step up in competition. Calafiori's out as well, as is Havertz and Jesus. Saka, by the way, has made 2 substitute appearances since the international break. Likely he will start the match on Tuesday against Real Madrid. Real Madrid lost to Valencia on the weekend 2-1, but they did beat Atletico Madrid in penalties to advance to the quarterfinal stage of this competition for the 5th time in a row. They haven't been knocked out in the quarterfinal stage since 03-04. That's a remarkable run. Also, not only it was the loss to Valencia on the weekend, they shipped 4 to Sociedad in the Copa del Rey the timeout before that, despite advancing in that competition, 5-4 in aggregate. This is the thing with Real Madrid. They find a way to move on and advance. No clean sheet in 8. They played to over 2.5 in 7 of 8. Both teams to score in 7 of 8 overall. They conceded 17 goals in the Champions League. It's ridiculous as well. And the expected goals against away, overall, 19.7, which is only 12th best. They did play a couple more games, but still, that's a big old number. 7-5-3 away from home in La Liga this season. Again, 26 goals scored, but 15 conceded. And only the 3rd best in expected away points in La Liga, 18.53 expected goals against is the 4th best as well. Notable for the first leg, Tchouaméni suspended. Carvajal and Militao obviously out for the season. Mendy, Courtois, and Ceballos all likely to return for the Tuesday fixture as well. Head-to-head in the Champions League in 2006, a 0-0, and a great goal by Thierry Henry for a 1-0 victory for Arsenal. So they never lost to Real Madrid in a competitive game either. Is that enough to live off of if you want to back Arsenal in this? Something that happened nearly 20 years ago? Probably not. Gabriel's the big loss, and you can never rule Real Madrid out. So how are you looking at this tie?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I was surprised that Real Madrid was so short to advance. I'm not saying I don't think they're going to advance, but I thought the price was a little bit disrespectful to Arsenal. Just again, based on the fact that Arsenal are one of the best defensive teams in Europe, I would argue. And I know they've lost Gabriel, but I don't think that makes. Obviously, he's a good player, especially dominant in the air. But it's Arsenal's defensive structure that basically makes them very difficult to beat. And I think that Madrid are going to find it very difficult to break them down over 2 legs. That has to be Arsenal's game plan. Just like you said there, 0-0 and a 1-0 all those years ago. that they have to be planning something similar, because there's no way they could go toe to toe with this Real Madrid team and come out on top. They just don't have the firepower, unfortunately, to be able to make it a very fun, action-packed, goal-laden 2 games. So again, I'm just going to go with the under goal line, minus 135. It's a little bit shorter than the Inter one, but I still think it's value. Like I said, Arsenal just don't have the firepower to hang with Madrid in their end-to-end tussle. So it's going to be very much a 2 games where Arsenal set up to be hard to beat, frustrate, and just try occasionally to poke and try and find those little passes through the lines to cause Real Madrid some problems. And likewise with Real Madrid, on paper the defensive record is not very good, but when it comes to certain, they're just so adaptable. When it depends on who they need to play, is how they need to play. The last round against Atletico Madrid, two very, very cagey games with few chances, good chances at either end, and both of them were, very, very low, fine margin. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was the same. And like I said, Arsenal, one of the best defenses in the Europe. 0.87 expected goals against per game in the Champions League, 0.96 in the Prem. Madrid away from home, first leg, they've got the Bernabeu to fall back on. They're going to probably play a little bit of a containing counter as well. So I think it'll be a bit of a standoff in this first leg. Not expecting too much action on Tuesday, it's fair to say.
You are going to love what I have to say here. Because the one thing that Jake has done all season on this podcast is smash me in head-to-heads, because I couldn't disagree more. I think both teams to score is a cracking play at minus 120. This is how Real Madrid play. They ship goals, they score them. It might be a 1-1 in the end, but I mean, expecting Real Madrid to come away with a clean sheet in a game like this, come on. Especially with Tchouaméni out of the side as well. Alaba will come back in and play alongside Rudiger. I just don't buy it. I've seen enough of this Real Madrid side to know what they're all about. They have enough talent to score against anyone in world football. Arsenal, and the Gabriel loss cannot be overstated how big that is. I'm sorry. It'll be a completely different construct without him and Saliba. They're the anchors to this team. I guess throw a Declan Rice in the equation, but they're going up against the likes of an attack that they just don't play. Even in the Premier League, they don't play Vinicius, Rodrigo, Mbappe, Belling. They just don't play against teams like this. So I both teams to score at minus 120 is my favorite play. I'm fine going over 2.25 in a Real Madrid match at minus 111. I'll even go a step further. I think it's worth a punt here for what it's listed at. It's combined on Pinnacle, Real Madrid and over 2.5 at plus 480. Plus 480. Remember, the away goals do nothing. You just need to go in and play straight up. We've seen this over the course of this competition. Some big score lines in the first legs of games. Teams aren't playing it safe. They're not playing to hang around. They're playing to get it, to improve their stake in this fixture as well. Madrid in the over 2.5 at plus 480. I'll take a punt on that as well. Madrid to win at plus 220. Come on, all of this. You said that it's a little bit disrespectful to Arsenal. I think the numbers here, you could get a draw no bet at plus 134 backing Real Madrid against the Arsenal. All of these numbers, I'm fine making pro Real Madrid plays across the board. So I'm probably going to live to regret this, because Jake has smashed me all season on these head-to-heads. But this seems like a good old head-to-head right here.
Technically doesn't have to be, though, if you go both teams to score, because the 1-1 suits us both. Right. I could see that happening. But yeah, I think you're right in saying that goals have followed in these Champions League games, but you're kind of forgetting who Real Madrid are playing here. They're playing an absolute dour Arsenal team.
No Gabriel,
they don't score goals and don't concede goals. Yeah, but that's going to make them even more defensive. They're going to be playing Party Rice as holding midfielders. They're going to be playing Timber tucked inside. What's it called? The left back, Miles Skelly's who we're playing tucked inside. Bukayo Saka, yes, he's very good going forward, but he's also Arsenal's best defensive winger as well. They are going to be very difficult to break down, and I would not be surprised if this game finished 0-0. I would not be surprised if this finished 0-0.
I would. I think I'd be famous last words for me.
We've seen in my mind, Arsenal are very, very similar to Atletico Madrid in the way in which they approach matches. And Atletico Madrid just beat Real Madrid 1-0 in the second leg of the Champions League. Granted, it was, second leg, and Real Madrid knew that if it was stayed 1-0, they could take extra time. But
That's
I
a
think we're going to see
derby.
a similar kind of performance.
Yeah,
But they're
maybe.
the type of team that are very low, similar to Inter Milan. That's why there's so few goals whenever Arsenal plays, because that's just how they are. They defence first, try and nick a winner. 1-0 to the Arsenal, if you like. It's a real throwback. So yeah, I'd be surprised. And yes, Real Madrid went and put however many past Manchester City and Dortmund and Milan and whoever, but they're completely different styles of teams to what Arsenal are. Arsenal are very, very much we'll keep a clean sheet and we'll win the game 1-0, and that's fine.
I get it. If Real Madrid score in the first half, I mean, the Madrid and over the total, they have to come in. I don't think that they can play that way against Real Madrid. I think it's a fool's game if Arteta thinks he can actually do that. So you're not wrong in terms of the way that their application. I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can do it. Not with Gabriel out.
Himself to keep 2 clean sheets against Real Madrid. Whether it actually he believes it or not, I think he'll back it, because I think that this Arsenal defense is very, very good, and it's still underrated, the defensive structure. And that's why they've kind of hung around in second place for most of the season, is because they've not been conceding goals. Because if their defensive structure was, nowhere near as good, as soon as you lose all your attacking players, you're going to lose a lot of football matches because you can't score enough. But they don't need to score that many to win football matches.
But we have to move on. But also part of that was the fact that they lost all their attacking players. They didn't have a 9. Saka was out. Martinelli was out. Now they have all these players. They were forced to play that way. I think it was pragmatic. It wasn't great, but it was pragmatic, and they're still miles off from challenging for a Premier League as well. So, and even when they went away, they played Sporting, they put 5 past them. I think that this Arsenal team can score goals here against Real Madrid.
Pieces.
But still, they're a difficult team on set pieces. I think there's goals. I do, and I'll always favor Real Madrid in the Champions League over Arsenal. Come on. I'm not spinning the clock back 19 years. Let's go to the Wednesday games. We've got to pick up the pace here. Barcelona and Borussia Dortmund. Barcelona got past Benfica 4-1 on aggregate. They're the league leaders in La Liga. They played their 4th game in 10 days and played to a 1-1 draw against Betis over the weekend. They have a 4-point lead in La Liga. No losses in 22 for Barcelona. 7 wins in a row before the draw on the weekend. 39.3 expected point total is the best in 15 La Liga home games, but only 34 points. 41 goals scored at home, by the way, and an XG even better than that. 44.18 at home as well. And their expected goals against is good. 9.93 as well. They're just a great side. Barcelona 8-1-1 in the Champions League. 4th best expected goal differential per 90 minutes. 32 Champions League goals is the most. Rafinha's been the best player in this competition, with all due respect to the former Barcelona player Ousmane Dembele. He has 11 Champions League goals and combined for 16 goal contributions, which is best as well. He was rested on the weekend, notably. Inigo Martinez missed the Betis game, but the center back likely to return. It was precautionary with a muscle. Almost the big out. He's got an adductor issue, possibly going to be ready for the second leg. But whether it's Gavi who comes in or Ferran Torres, we'll see what that looks like from Hansi Flick. Dortmund, 2-1 win in the second leg and a 3-2 overall on aggregate, dumping Lille out of this competition. Niko Kovac has been pretty good settling things down for Dortmund. Back-to-back wins in the Bundesliga as well against decent enough sides in Mainz and Freiburg since the international break. They haven't had a clean sheet in 6. They did lose to Bochum and Leipzig, both in their last 5 away games. 3.55 XG in the 4-1 victory over Freiburg, but they did give up chances, over 2 expected goals against. 8th in the Bundesliga. This is their season right here. Not a great away side. They have scored goals. Girassi has 10 goals in the Champions League as well. Head-to-head, Barcelona did play Dortmund in this competition back in December. It was a 3-2 final, and both had an XG over 2 and 9 combined big chances in that game as well. This is the most lopsided sides based upon the Pinnacle markets. Lopsided the games, I should say, on the Pinnacle markets. Is there some value to be had here backing Barcelona in some way, shape, or form?
No, I don't think so. I won't be at all surprised if they absolutely hammered Dortmund, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Dortmund kept it close going to the second leg. Barcelona's defence is still worrying for me. I think they are capable of conceding twice in any game. Obviously, going forward, they're just relentless and they will score at least once, probably twice here. But yeah, just not enough for me to kind of, not enough confidence, especially off the back of such a hectic schedule, playing every other day pretty much for the last, since the international break. So yeah, I just quite happy to leave this one alone. Like you said, this is the most one-sided on paper, the ones according to the bookmakers, and I think we both expect Barcelona to advance. It's just a case of how they do it. Yeah, the goal line did interest me immediately. It was at 3.25, but again, it's just I could see anything happening. So I just thought the best thing to do here is just leave it alone.
I think Barcelona are going to smash them, but like, where are you getting value? Where are you getting bang for your buck in terms of the market? Is it Barcelona over 2.5 goals at plus 107? That's probably the best that I can find. But yeah, Barcelona winner and over 2.5 at minus 127. I'm trying to come up with the best way. Those are the best two options that I've mined on Pinnacle. I just can't see Dortmund hanging with Barcelona. This is, again, step up in competition from playing Lille, who's probably the worst team left standing, or one of the worst teams left standing in the last leg, or in the last phase of the competition. So yeah, it's not a tie that I love. I still like a Barcelona futures play even at plus 315. This is the most straightforward of all the four ties at the quarterfinal stage. Let's wrap things up. PSG and Aston Villa's Unai Emery faces his former employers. Adding to the intrigue because both sides are bang on form right now. PSG advanced by beating Liverpool in pens. In fairness, it's a little bit of justice because the first leg, they lost at home 1-0 to Liverpool, but they smashed them with 27 shots. PSG secured another league title on the weekend with 6 games to spare. So all focus is on this fixture. They've been incredible. They're unbeaten and only one home loss, I believe, in all competitions over the course of the campaign. They finished 15th in the league phase of the Champions League. They beat Brest 10-0 on aggregate. That was just a walk in the park. They have the third best Champions League expected goal differential per 90. Only Bayern Munich and Atalanta, RIP, were better. Dembele, 51 shots is the most and 6 more than anyone else. Kengan Lee, he's out with a foot injury. It's notable that Marquinhos will miss the first leg. He is suspended. As for Aston Villa, 8 wins in a row. They've gone over 2.5 in their last 5 games. They've scored 2 or more in 6 of the last 7 games, 6 in the Premier League. If anyone tells you that January business isn't the efficient way to go, like, don't ask Aston Villa. Rashford and Senzio have added to the team. By the way, Senzio can play against the side he's on loan from, just based upon the way that things work now in the Champions League. The fixtures are adding up for Villa. They play Palace in the semifinal of the FA Cup. That's upcoming as well. 4 consecutive away wins. That's notable because it's a team that's shipped a lot of goals away from home. In the Premier League, only 6-2-7 away from home. 16th best away side in terms of expected points as well. And only the bottom 3 have a worse expected goals against away from home. 30 in terms of expected goals against away from home in the Premier League as well. It's the first meeting between these two sides. And I think there's going to be a lot of intrigue. Jake, I know that you've taken pro Aston Villa positions in terms of the Premier League. What about this? I mean, I keep on saying it on this podcast, but they're stepping up in weight class here. Can they hang with the big boys in PSG?
Think so, yeah. I don't see a reason why not. They've got an expensively assembled squad. They've got one of the better managers in Europe. Yeah, I don't see why not. And like I said on the last show that we did last week, they've got the squad depth to be able to juggle these games now. In my opinion, they've got 2 players for every position that probably would start in most Premier League teams. So, yeah, I think they're more than capable of hanging with PSG. Whether it'll be enough to qualify, I'm not too sure. But I think they'll keep tied close heading back to Villa Park. So I'm immediately going to back Villa plus 1.5 on the handicap at minus 123. Basically, as long as they don't lose by 2 goals, we get a winner. And I don't think they're going to get blown out here. And I think the market is reacted too strongly in PSG's favour because, in my opinion, looking at these odds, I would think that PSG are playing Brest again with the away team at plus 660. I mean, how disrespectful is it for the team that finished 4th in the best league in Europe last season, being priced such a big number away from home in a Champions League game? Yeah, I don't think the gap between the two teams is as big as the odds reflect. Granted, I don't think Villa are going to go there and get a win, but let's not forget that Liverpool went there and won. It was very fortunate, but they did. They went there and got the win. And PSG obviously turned that around at Anfield. So they're not completely unbeatable at home. And Villa are the kind of awkward team that PSG are going to really, really find difficult to A, break down, but also B, stop on the counter-attack, because their Villa's midfield is dynamic. Like, they've got a lot of legs and they've got a lot of engine in there with Kamara. I think Onana will play. I think McGinn might play as well. You might even play Tielemans and make it almost a diamond and really flood that midfield. And then you've got Watkins, you've got Rodgers that will probably play split strikers and cause all sorts of problems on the counter-attack. So, yeah, they're going to be an awkward opponent. And obviously you've got Emery, who's one of the best in-game tactical managers. He's one of the best when it comes to European knockout competitions, so he definitely gives them an edge. Obviously, Enrique's pretty good himself, but I give him a real fighter's chance of getting through this. I don't think this is going to be a walkover, a victory for PSG over the 2 legs.
I just think that the game model here will be PSG, and at least in the first leg, suffocating Aston Villa. I mean, I'm not sure what the score will end up, but I think that PSG are just going to carry the play. And we'll see if Villa can hang. Not really much for me here. I kind of like PSG just to dominate corner kicks in this game. -3. That's a big handicap for PSG. But at minus 103, that's probably my only play in this one. They had 14-2 corner kicks over Liverpool. A great counterattacking side in that first leg at home, and I kind of see the game playing it in a similar way. It's just if PSG can finish their chances or not. So I'm gonna stay from the totals. I'm gonna make a pro play on PSG on the corners, and that's about it for me.
Just one final point from me is a lot of people will look at that Liverpool game and see that PSG basically dominated the ball, and they did. But I think that's partly because Liverpool's midfield is nowhere near physical enough to deal with what PSG ask. Whereas I think Villa have a lot of physicality in their entire 11. I think they're a lot more physical than what Liverpool are, and I wonder if that might be something that PSG don't like. You've got some big boys there that will. I'm thinking of the diminutive midfield at PSG that could easily be overpowered by Villa with their running power and with the physicality. Obviously, the PSG lads are a lot better footballers, but if Villa make it a real old school gritty kind of 2 legs where some big tackles flying in and there's a little bit of needle, I think it could be very, very interesting.
That's very Unai Emery. We'll see if the team can execute. I still have questions about that. All right, very quickly, Jake, we're a little bit over here, but anything in the Europa League? I know that you're looking ahead. We're at the quarterfinal stage of that as well. Nothing from me. I'll just let you take it away.
Yeah, fairly quickly. I was very surprised with the price Lyon were at home to Man United. And backing them drawn a bet at minus 116 looks a very, very shrewd bet. Since the November international break, Lyon have only lost once in 12 at home, and that was against PSG, and it was a narrow 3-2 defeat in Liga. And they're scoring a lot of goals, conceding very few, and obviously United are just really struggling to create chances, aren't they? Since the international break, they've really struggled. The best attacking player has been Harry Maguire. I'm happy to get Lyon on side. And backing draw no bet as opposed to straight win, just purely because United have saved their best for this competition. So you do get that extra insurance that if they do get a point, then you are getting your money back. But the fun for me is in the Conference League, because Chelsea are priced up ridiculously short to win the whole competition. And they are short to go and beat Legia Warsaw on Thursday as well. But as I touched on last week in the podcast, they've just been so boring. Like they are really, really boring, Chelsea. Maresca ball is in full flow. They're possession based. They're not doing anything with it most of the time. And I think that means that every time Chelsea play, you've got to look at the unders. And this occasion, the line's at 2.75 minus 111. I definitely wouldn't put anybody off backing that. But I think Chelsea win to nil at plus 181 might be the bet of the week. As I said last week, it's now 6 games, averaging just less than 1 expected goal, 4 per game, 0.7 against. Barely creating any chances, barely conceding any chances. So it's going to be fine margin. But I mean, they're playing against Legia Warsaw, and with all respect to them, where would they rank in the Premier League in terms of quality? Would it be closer to like a Southampton, Leicester, or maybe a West Ham? In which case, the plus 181 for a Chelsea win to nil looks huge value.
Okay, good stuff, Jake. Some additional picks and plays from Jake Osgathorpe. I just want to mention before we give our best play of the week or best plays, Bayern Munich's being pushed out to minus 110 now. I mean,
wow.
It was going to be one of my favorite plays of the week. Bayern Munich, I had them at plus 104, and things are shifting even as we're recording these podcasts. All right, so what do you like the best this week?
I'm going to be taking the under in the Bayern game, minus 108. Yeah. Whenever Inter involved, it's just immediate under. And then Chelsea win to nil at plus 181. I know we don't usually touch on the third tier European competition, but we're getting to a stage now where there is some good odds available, some good markets, and I do like the look of that Chelsea game.
Okay. My favorite play, both teams to score, Arsenal, Real Madrid at minus 120. And I think it's worth a punt here, just at the number, Madrid to win over 2.5 at plus 480. I'll leave it at that. Pro Madrid plays. I just can't see them playing in a fixture.
You'll be kicking yourself if they win 1-0.
I know. I'll probably end up playing that. It's just not one of my best plays. At plus 228 as well on Pinnacle. Give this podcast a like. Smash the like button. Please subscribe as well. I will be back midweek to look ahead to the weekend that will be across European football's top domestic leagues. He is Jake Osgathorpe. I am Gareth Wheeler. This has been episode 36 of Pinnacle FC.